You've achieved a lot of awards. You've got the Kennedy Center Honors, Grammy Lifetime Achievement, 12 other Grammys, Gershwin Prize, and tomorrow you're getting inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
For more than 70 years, Willie Nelson has stood on stages across America with the same old guitar in his hands and the same honest voice that made millions of people fall in love with country music. As the years have passed, many of the friends who once stood beside him have disappeared. Some retired, some quietly stepped away from the spotlight, and many sadly passed away. Yet Willie continues to perform even in his later years, leaving fans wondering what keeps him going. It is not simply a love for music or a desire to remain famous. Behind every performance is something much deeper. Throughout his life, Willie built friendships that were stronger than business partnerships or recording contracts. These friendships were built through years of shared struggles, long nights on tour, financial hardships, and personal heartbreak. Every song reminds him of someone who is no longer here. Every concert carries memories of voices that once harmonized beside him. Many people see Willie as one of the last surviving legends of classic country music. But Willie himself has often spoken about feeling like a man carrying the memories of an entire generation. As one friend after another disappeared, he quietly accepted a responsibility that few people truly understand. He would continue singing not only for himself, but also for those who could no longer stand beside him. This promise has become one of the greatest driving forces in his life. It explains why he still travels, still records music, and still refuses to slow down. For Willie, every performance is more than entertainment. It is a tribute to lifelong friends whose stories deserve to be remembered. His journey reminds us that true friendship does not end when someone passes away. Sometimes the greatest way to honor those we have lost is to continue carrying the dreams they once shared together. One friendship that perfectly captures this loyalty was a bond between Willie Nelson and Glen Campbell. Although both men became legendary performers, their friendship was built long before awards and sold-out concerts. As Glen battled Alzheimer's disease during the final years of his life, his family searched for ways to keep his love for music alive. Even after the disease slowly stole many of his memories, something incredible remained untouched. Whenever someone placed a guitar into Glen's hands, his fingers still remembered the music. During the recording of one of his final albums, Glen wanted to perform "Funny How Time Slips Away," a song Willie had written many years earlier. Because of Alzheimer's, Glen could no longer remember an entire verse. The producers recorded the song one line at a time. Glen would sing a single line, pause, collect himself, and then continue with another line. It was a slow and emotional process that showed how powerful music can be even when memory begins to fade. Willie later added his own vocals from another recording studio because Glen was no longer able to complete the duet in person. Although they were separated by distance and illness, their voices came together in one final performance that touched millions of listeners. Sadly, Glen never fully understood what that recording would mean to people around the world. By the time the song was released, his illness had progressed too far for him to appreciate its success. For Willie, however, the recording became much more than another song. It became a lasting reminder of friendship, loyalty, and the heartbreaking reality that even the strongest voices eventually grow silent. Every time Willie hears that recording, he remembers not just the music, but also the man who once stood beside him through so many important moments. Long before fame changed their lives, Willie Nelson, Glen Campbell, Johnny Cash, and many other country legends shared something much more important than success. They all came from humble beginnings where hard work was necessary simply to survive. Willie spent much of his childhood growing up in the small Texas town of Abbott. His grandparents raised him and introduced him to music at an early age. Life was simple, and money was always limited. Picking cotton in the hot Texas fields became part of daily life, teaching him lessons about determination and patience long before he ever entered a recording studio. Johnny Cash experienced similar struggles while growing up in Arkansas, where his family worked long hours farming the land. Music became an escape from difficult days, giving him hope that life could someday become different. Glen Campbell was raised in a large family where even buying a guitar required sacrifice. His father ordered a simple guitar through a catalog because it was one of the few gifts the family could afford. Waylon Jennings also discovered music while growing up in rural Texas, performing on local radio stations as a young boy because singing gave him a purpose. None of these future stars expected to become famous. They simply loved music because it gave them hope during difficult times. Their shared experiences created a unique understanding that lasted throughout their careers. Even after becoming wealthy and successful, they never forgot where they came from. They understood the struggles of ordinary people because they had lived those same struggles themselves. That common background created friendships built on respect instead of competition. They never saw each other as rivals. Instead, they became brothers connected by music hardship and the belief that success should never erase the values learned during childhood. As their careers grew, these friendships became even stronger because each man understood the challenges of surviving in the music business. Willie Nelson faced many disappointments during his early career. Nashville executives believed his voice sounded too different from what country radio wanted, and many people doubted his songwriting style. While others rejected him, Glenn Campbell quietly offered support when Willie needed it most. Glenn helped Willie secure opportunities that allowed him to continue writing songs instead of giving up on his dream. Willie never forgot that kindness. Years later, when financial disaster struck and Willie faced enormous tax problems that threatened everything he had built, true friends once again stepped forward. Glenn invited Willie to perform, giving him work during one of the most difficult periods of his life. There were no cameras announcing the favor and no public celebration afterward. Glenn simply helped because that is what true friends do. Willie carried those acts of kindness with him for the rest of his life. His friendship with Waylon Jennings reflected that same loyalty. When Waylon struggled through difficult years filled with addiction and personal pain, Willie searched for ways to encourage him instead of judging him. Their friendship was never based on perfect lives. It was built on forgiveness, understanding, and standing beside each other during life's darkest moments. These quiet acts of support rarely appeared in newspaper headlines, yet they became some of the most meaningful chapters of their lives. They proved that real friendship is measured not during moments of success, but during moments when everything seems to be falling apart. Willie has often suggested that these friendships shaped him far more deeply than awards or record sales ever could, and they remain one of the greatest treasures of his remarkable life. Another friendship that defined Willie Nelson's life was the one he shared with Waylon Jennings. The two men became symbols of the outlaw country movement, but their relationship was much deeper than music or fame. They understood each other because they had lived through many of the same struggles. Both refused to let record companies control every decision they made. They wanted the freedom to create music their own way, even if that meant taking risks. During the difficult years when Waylon battled addiction, many people around him lost hope. Some believed his career might never recover. Willie, however, never gave up on his friend. Instead of judging him, he stood beside him with patience and compassion. One of the most touching stories from their friendship involves Willie cutting off his famous braids and sending them to Waylon through his wife, Connie. It may seem like an unusual gift, but to Waylon it meant far more than hair. It represented trust, sacrifice, and a reminder that someone still believed in him. Willie was telling his friend that he was not alone in his fight. Waylon later kept those braids for the rest of his life because they reminded him of one of the darkest periods he had survived with the help of a true friend. Their friendship teaches an important lesson about loyalty. Real friends do not disappear when life becomes difficult. They stay beside you when everyone else walks away. Willie and Waylon shared countless concerts, recording sessions, and personal conversations over the years, but it was these quiet moments of support that mattered most. Even after Waylon passed away, Willie continued speaking about him with admiration and respect. Every time Willie performed songs they once sang together, it feels like part of Waylon's spirit is still present. Their story reminds us that music can connect people, but friendship is what gives those songs their deepest meaning. While Willie treasures friendships, he also watched many of his fellow country legends struggle against changes within the music industry. Nashville had once been a place where artists were celebrated for their honesty and unique voices. Over time, however, business became more important than tradition. Record companies focused on trends, younger performers, and commercial success. Some of the artists who had helped build country music suddenly found themselves pushed aside. Willie watched this happen to people he deeply respected. Merle Haggard, one of the greatest songwriters in country music history, experienced this painful reality. His songs spoke about ordinary working people, family struggles, and life in small-town America. Yet, after disagreements with parts of the music business, many opportunities slowly disappeared. Radio stations played his songs less often, and industry support became harder to find. Willie believed this was unfair, because legends should never be forgotten simply because times have changed. He often used his own success to remind audiences of the people who came before him. At concerts, he continued performing songs written by his old friends, introducing younger audiences to music they might never have heard otherwise. Willie understood that fame is temporary, but great songs can live forever if someone keeps singing them. He never wanted country music to forget the voices that helped shape the genre. In many ways, Willie became more than a performer. He became a guardian of country music's history. Every concert became an opportunity to honor friends who were no longer able to stand beside him. Through his performances, their memories continued reaching new generations of listeners who were discovering classic country music for the very first time. George Jones was another artist whose journey deeply affected Willie Nelson. Widely considered one of the greatest singers country music has ever produced, George possessed a voice filled with emotion, heartbreak, and honesty. Willie admired him not only because of his talent, but also because George never pretended to be someone he was not. Like many country stars, George faced personal struggles throughout his life, including addiction and difficult relationships. Despite these challenges, he continued creating unforgettable music that touched millions of people. Willie often believed that George's greatest strength came from his willingness to sing about pain without hiding behind perfection. Sadly, there were moments when the music industry failed to show George the respect he deserved. Stories about award shows limiting his performances or overlooking his contributions disappointed Willie because he believed legends should always be honored. Watching close friends receive less recognition during their later years made Willie realize how quickly the entertainment world can move on. Instead of becoming bitter, he chose a different response. He continued celebrating George's music whenever possible, reminding fans that true greatness does not disappear simply because the spotlight moves elsewhere. Willie understood that history is shaped not only by awards but by the songs that continue living in people's hearts. George Jones left behind countless recordings that still comfort listeners today, and Willie has always believed those songs deserve to be remembered. Their friendship reflected a shared understanding that success is temporary, but honesty in music lasts forever. Through every tribute and every memory, Willie continues carrying George's legacy alongside his own. As the years passed, Willie Nelson slowly became one of the last remaining members of an extraordinary generation of country music pioneers. One after another, the friends who had traveled beside him were gone. Johnny Cash passed away. Waylon Jennings was gone. Merle Haggard was gone. Glenn Campbell's long battle with Alzheimer's came to an end. Every funeral reminded Willie that time never stops moving forward. Yet instead of allowing grief to silence him, he found new purpose in continuing to perform. Every concert became more than a performance. It became a celebration of everyone who helped shape his journey. Fans often notice the emotion in Willie's voice when he sings certain songs, but many may not realize those emotions come from memories of lifelong friends. Some songs remind him of recording sessions that lasted until sunrise. Others remind him of long bus rides, backstage conversations, and quiet moments shared away from cameras. Music became the place where those memories remained alive. Willie once understood that every generation eventually passes the torch to the next. Rather than fearing that reality, he accepted it with grace. He continued writing songs because songwriting allowed him to preserve stories that might otherwise disappear. Through music, the people he loved could continue speaking long after they were gone. That quiet mission became one of the most meaningful parts of his later career. Willie no longer performs simply because audiences expect it. He performs because every song carries pieces of the people who helped shape his remarkable life. Willie Nelson's influence reaches far beyond country music because his life has become a symbol of resilience, kindness, and loyalty. Younger artists often speak about the generosity Willie has shown throughout his career. He has welcomed new musicians onto his stage, recorded duets with singers from different musical styles, and offered encouragement to artists who were just beginning their careers. Much like Glenn Campbell once helped him during difficult times, Willie has tried to offer the same support to others. He understands how one act of kindness can completely change someone's future. His willingness to help without expecting anything in return reflects the same values he learned growing up in rural Texas. Success never changed the simple lessons taught by his grandparents. Hard work, honesty, humility, and compassion remain the foundation of his life. Fans admire Willie not only because of his songs, but because of the way he treats people. Stories about his generosity have followed him for decades, whether supporting struggling farmers through farm aid, helping fellow musicians,